Welcome, everyone, to the U Plus AI podcast. I have Dr. Sven Jungmann with me on this episode. I just finished a podcast recording with him. We talked about his story of being a healthcare doctor and how he's become a healthcare entrepreneur. And recently, he released a book along with co-authored with Felix Staritz. Is called Fight Back Now. So we talk about lots of interesting things in the podcast. Be sure to listen to it. I have Dr. Sven Jungmann, and he's going to introduce himself in this elevator pitch. So, Dr. Sven, all yours.
Hi, thank you. I'm Sven. I'm a medical doctor, and after a couple of years working clinically, I got very frustrated. To be fair, I got frustrated already doing the studies with a lot of the inefficiencies that we have in the system, then left it to now build new digital companies together with large established corporations and advise startups in the healthcare space on how to make the system change in a way that even I would like to go back.
Okay. So that's a good goal. That's an interesting goal, Dr. Sven. So certainly look forward to that. Well, that's great. So we move into our next segment. I call this favorites. And in favorites, I'm going to ask you, I read your book, Fight Back Now, certainly a book that I would recommend to all my viewers and listeners. Lots of interesting stuff about healthcare, about climate change, and how we must build newer solutions and newer things to help people all around us, and how interconnected we are. So, of course, in the course of writing this book, I'm sure you would have met with a lot of interesting people all across the world who are building these solutions, who are changing the status quo. What I'd like to ask you is, who is, or maybe are, some of those people from whom you draw the most inspiration? Like you get up in the morning and say, yes, I want to be like them. They're changing the world. I want to be like them. Who would you say are your best sources of inspiration?
My healthcare idols are Abraham Verghese. He's a doctor out of Stanford who I love because he reminds us of the importance of the human touch that we discussed earlier. I'm a big fan of Eric Topol because he has a very strong clinical science background and he brings that into the digital health development. And then there's Atul Gawande, a Harvard surgeon, who he's done a lot of great things. He brought checklists into surgeries, more or less. But what I admire about him is how he uses the power of words to really drive change in a complex entrenched system. He's a good writer. And I think that is part of his big success next to all of the excellent surgeries and science that he does.
Wow. I'll include that in the show notes so that people can go and take a look. Thank you. One more. What is maybe one digital health product or service that you're waiting with bated breath to become available in the market so that you can sort of get at it or play with it? Or
I think a lot of people will not like that, but I'm very much looking forward to implantable sensors and the possibility of quantifying more and more about our lives. It is creepy. I'm quite aware of that. But there's just so much you could do with it that could change things dramatically.
And is this a particular kind of sensor for a particular need, or you're looking at a more general sensor which can do many things?
I mean, there are some things that are out there already. It's still a little bit limited. For example, you can measure your blood sugar with a device that you wear on your arm. Then you have the smartwatches with EKGs and all of these things, which is already quite strong. But I'm expecting that there will be much more, where maybe you can measure certain hormones and the brain activities and all of that, to later on identify where people might be at risk of developing a new disease, and you can treat it very, very early.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think I've read this from Yuval Noah Harari. He says that, to be at a point where something that's wrong with you is picked up by a sensor even before it comes into your own consciousness, maybe you feel a niggle or a pain or some discomfort. Even before that, if you could pick that up, maybe, you could offer a treatment that's early, that's probably less expensive, less complicated, and, less painful for the patient. So possible. So thank you, Sven. So we now move into our next segment. I call this fill in the blanks. And this is something simple. We've been doing it from probably school, early school. So I'm going to give you, a sentence, and I will ask you to fill in the blanks, with whatever you think. It need not be a single word. It can be a phrase. It can even, be a longer phrase, whatever. But you can think and tell me what best fits there.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the first. So here's it. In a decade from now, healthcare professionals who do not adapt to use AI as part of their regular practice will be dash.
If I speak for Germany, they will probably be fined or might lose their license.
Okay. That's interesting. Find or lose their license. Okay.
It's probably strong, but what we're seeing over here, in fact, is a health minister who really wants to push things forward, and is doing that with incentives, both positive and negative. And we are developing a telemetrics infrastructure currently, which has a lot of problems. But some doctors say, you know what, we're not going to use it, and then he's like, okay, fine, then you're not going to get paid, or you have to pay high fines and so on. Right?
That's interesting. Certainly something that I was not aware of, and I'm sure our viewers will also be, good to know that this kind of developments are happening. Okay, your next one. Fill in the blanks. The best place to deliver healthcare to someone who needs it the most would be dash.
Their homes.
Fantastic.
Do you want me to comment, or do we?
Please explain why. Please explain.
So I think if you need a lot of care, often people who need a lot of care have other problems as well. For example, they're not as mobile, or they don't maybe have maybe they can't afford traveling far to get the right care. So if you take the effort of going to them, and you can do that with telemedicine, for example, in many cases, you are helping them get access to something that otherwise probably even wouldn't. The second bit is if you're not in a good place, physically, mentally, probably the confines of your own home can be, in many cases, better than a hospital where everything is anonymous and you give up all of the control. And then I think the third reason is hospitals can be really dangerous in terms of infectious diseases, for example, even outside of COVID. And that is also better. Johns Hopkins has been working for a long time on a concept called hospital at home, where certain patients get treated at home, and they've seen very good results with that, also financially.
Yeah, I was thinking, it would be home, or the way I would put it is, it would be wherever they are. Maybe they are at home, maybe they are at office, maybe they are at university, maybe they are at a stadium, who knows, at a school. So wherever they are.
You're right. I'll change to that. You're right.
All right, cool. So we move on to our next segment. Again, this is about the future of healthcare. So here, I call the segment Imagine. And it's where I give you a scenario, and you can let your imagination run riots and kind of tell me what you think about. All right? So here's your scenario. It is the year 2030, 10 years from now. You realize that you're having a bit of difficulty in reading the text in books that you used to regularly read pretty fast. You wonder what the reason might be. Walk us through your imagination on how this would proceed towards a resolution in 2030.
Very good. So I'm ignoring that I have a medical background and can do some of the things myself. In that case, I would probably ask my Alexa, whoever it is, what she thinks. And then it would ask me a couple of questions about my exact symptoms, or maybe run a reading test with me where it says, well, hold it close. There are quite a few things that you can do quite quickly where you just look at the field of view. Is it only the center where you can't see? Is everything a bit blurred, or is there a part that you can't see? It already changes a lot of the potential diagnoses if you just do that. And potentially, as a first step, that could be self-guided. You know, I might have a stroke, right? Maybe I'm blind because I'm just going for a stroke. That's an emergency. So if the device can tell me that right away, that would be pretty good. And it could maybe even find out if it's a stroke, then maybe my typing changed because my fingers are also affected by it. Or maybe my face isn't, you know, I can't move all my facial muscles as well. And things could pick that up. You know, so maybe I'm just talking to you and my camera picks it up and sees that something has happened and flags it. Or I have a device in my mirror, which also points out some of these things. That certainly makes, I think, a lot of sense. And then by then, I'm likely going to be wearing a lot of sensors who also collected other data and then can use that data, or this Alexa maybe could use the data to highlight some of the risk factors that I have that make one diagnosis more likely than the other. So if my blood sugar was always elevated, the stroke risk would again be higher, but it could also just be that the blood sugar destroys my nerves in my eyes. So, you know, it knows these things are probably more likely. I think with all of this, perhaps I even have a camera that I could put into my eye and it could screen my retina and get some more information. Could be tricky, but let's be imaginative. And then from there, it would suggest the optimal course of action. If it's not urgent, it would probably ask me to just schedule an appointment at my earliest convenience, and I can look at the doctors and see which one is best for people like me in terms of outcomes that they generate. If it's an emergency, I would hope that it would just instantly call an emergency car, which is probably self-driven.
Right. This is getting interesting. So I think you should probably pen an episode for, you know, have you heard of the series called Black Mirror?
Yeah.
I think maybe some of this could come there. It's pretty good, pretty interesting, pretty futuristic to say how we can, you know, how the future of healthcare can get in just 10 years. 10 years is not a whole lot of time. I mean, you know, so it's pretty good, pretty good. Well, thank you. It was certainly most interesting to sort of walk through that. So here's the next segment. I call this Bust a Myth. So what, according to you, I mean, you've been in healthcare, you've now a healthcare entrepreneur, you're advising healthcare startups. What is a myth in the healthcare plus AI space that you think is there? And what would you do to sort of bust it?
Okay. I think this is a tricky one. There are plenty of myths. There's one myth that I often see, which annoys me a little bit because I love AI, I love the digitalization that we're going through. But I'm seeing we're going through a digital revolution, yes, but we also see a renaissance of the quarks. And a big myth often that I see is this idea that as long as an app looks pretty and has an intuitively charming proposition, it must be good. And the thing that healthcare developed over the last couple of decades is something we call evidence-based healthcare, where it's not enough to just have something that seems logical, but where you really can prove that the stuff works in the way that you claim and that it is safe. Many years ago, centuries, they would give people who had a high temperament, they would give them a blood from sheep, right? Thinking that this would calm them down, and it turns out it just gives you very severe allergic reactions. But the narrative made sense to people, right? And we still have a lot of those things in nutrition science and the way people go about trying to live healthy lifestyles. Yeah, and I would like to see that both customers and particularly developers really adopt sort of this evidence-based mindset that is already prevalent in the other parts of healthcare.
Yeah, certainly. I think, I got to know a lot about evidence-based medicine and why it's important when I talked to a very senior doctor, Dr. T.K. Parsardi, in my podcast in episode 3. Certainly, that's when I realized that, there's so much of work that's done and so much of work that has taken years and, so many expert reviews and peer reviews, and it's there. But if you really look at clinical practice, even clinical practice, it's not always that it's followed. Maybe there's some good reasons, why it's not followed, but many times it's more out of like, maybe, just fit it in, it does not follow. So even there we have a problem. And I think it's more so, like you said, when probably technologists build apps and, digital health apps, I think this point of following the evidence-based medicine and the rigor of that, I think certainly is critical. So thank you for that perspective, really important. So we get to our last segment. Hopefully this will be a sigh of relief for you, Sven.
I love it. I'm loving this. I keep going when we hang up.
So this is called Tweet Saves the Day. So here's for all you Twitterati fans. So here I'm going to give you a scenario, and you will have the opportunity to write one tweet that will save that day, save that scenario. Of course, you don't have to write it. You can tell us what your tweet will be. So here's your scenario. Tweet saves the day. Doctors are somewhat upset that more often than not, patients are using digital health apps to keep track of their health conditions and increasingly, come back with data tracked by digital health apps and present them to the doctors. Doctors thinks that this means they have to understand the working of those digital apps, and that's sort of additional work that they have to do. So that's why they're upset. Now you are given a chance to write a tweet to address the concerns of all such doctors and healthcare people. What would be your tweet?
Okay, I will have to redact it because I might overrun the word limit, but I'll give it a try. I think my colleagues should remind themselves of the ethical principles of healthcare, whether it is the Hippocratic Oath or whatever else they subscribe to. They have a duty towards society to provide the best care. And if that makes your life a little bit more difficult or you have to learn something new, I'm sorry for you. But you have to do it. It's part of the ethics that you subscribe to. And if you look at it in a different way, this is your opportunity to have a much higher impact than you ever could.
Okay. And that is coming from a doctor himself. So thank you, Sven. Thank you. This has been most fun. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the U Plus AI podcast as well. I'd like to remind our viewers that we just finished the U Plus AI podcast with Dr. Sven Jungmann, where he talked extensively about, how he became a healthcare professional, his story, the story of the book Fight Back Now, and how he's advising healthcare startups to really bring new solutions for digital health in the coming future. So I'd really ask my viewers to go to uplusai.com and hear out the podcast with Sven Jungmann. And the podcast is also available on all popular podcast apps like Apple or Google or Spotify. So thank you so much, Dr. Sven Jungmann, for spending this time with me. It's been a real pleasure to have you here.
Likewise. Very much enjoyed this. Well done. I'll follow your future episodes as well.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.